Hello and welcome to the new Intermezzo Championship season. I am playing again in the Master Division. In the last season, I sadly didn't manage to win my Master Division or my Master Group. Danny Boy, with playing a very strong second half of the season, managed to overtake me and at the end won the group, meaning I'm playing again in the Master Division and have another shot now at getting back to Grandmaster. I have some interesting opponents here, interesting in the sense that against all of them I played no or almost no tournament games so far. So really some players that are not very familiar with and that I haven't encountered almost never in tournament games. So that will be very interesting to maybe get to know some new opponents. And with that, we can maybe start with introducing them to you and taking a look at the recent tournament performances. At the top, we have Sektat, who in the last Intermezzo Championship season already played in the Master Division and finished second with 14 points. In the season before that, he played in the Platinum Division, won his group with 19 points, and in the last International Championship season, he played in the Platinum Division and finished third, but with a strong amount of 24 points. In the last year's World Championship, he made it to stage 5. And I would say, generally, out of the four opponents, he is probably the one with already having the most experience on with playing on master level in Intermezzo and International Championship. I haven't checked it, but he has already played multiple seasons in the Master Division in those two leagues and has already some experience, but so far wasn't able to make it to Grandmaster yet. Then we have eRock37, who in the last Intermezzo Championship season managed to win his Platinum Division with 19 points. However, that was quite close because it was actually a three-way tie. There were two other players who also finished with 19 points, one of them Marta Pecheur. So eRock, they are already managing to get some nice results against strong opposition. In the Intermezzo Championship season before that, he played in the Platinum Division as well, finished at the third position with 16 points. And in the last International Championship season, he finished third in the Gold Division with 18 and a half points. In the last year's World Championship, he made it to stage 4. And I think it might be that this season in Master is actually his first season in Master overall in both Intermezzo and International Championship. Then we have 3-1 Let's Jam, who I played one tournament game so far against him. It was, I think, some seasons ago in the Royal League in the Emperor Division, so he made it to the top division in that tournament already, and I played one game against him, which I think I managed to win, but I don't remember it exactly. And yeah, he, in the last year's Intermezzo Championship season, played in the Master Division already, finished third with 13 points. And what is interesting is that he was in the same group as Sektat and finished only 1 point behind him. But in the last International Championship, he played in the Platinum Division and won his group with 25 points. And there he also played against Sektat, but managed to finish before him with 1 point difference. So in the last season of Intermezzo and International, those two already played in the same group, and both of the times it was very, very close between them. Then 2 seasons ago in the Intermezzo Championship, he managed to win his Platinum Division with 19 points. So certainly some solid results recently. Will be playing the Master Division now, also in the International Championship next season. And in the last World Championship, he actually didn't participate. At least I didn't find his name. So yeah, there we haven't any results. And then the last opponent in the group is Scipio238, who in the last Intermezzo Championship season managed to win his Platinum group with 24 points, so a very solid result. And in the season before that, he still played in Gold and managed to win his Gold group with 17 points. So I think he will now be playing for the first time in the Master Division in the Intermezzo Championship and managed to get a promotion in the last 2 seasons. However, he played already in the Master Division in the International Championship, where he at the last season managed to finish second with 22 points, and actually in the season before that also already scored 22 points. So he has shown that he can compete on Master level in the International Championship already, and let's see how he can perform in the Intermezzo Championship. And in the last year's World Championship, he made it to stage 5. Alright, so now we have had a quick overview over their tournament results, and now let's also quickly take a look at the clicker rating of me and my opponents. Thanks to my recently better results, I actually have climbed a little bit again in the rating. I'm back in the top 10, in the 10th position. Then the best rated of the opponents is 3-1 Let's Jam with a 37th position in the rating. But it's, as we can see, quite close between my opponents. They are very close in the rating, only a rating difference of 28 points in the conservative rating between them. Sectat is in the 45th position, Erock on the 47th position, and Scipio, who is in the on the 63rd position in the rating. Let's also quickly check the 3-player ratings, as the Intermezzo Championship is a pure 3-player tournament. But we see there are not big differences. I think 3-1 Let's Jam, Sectat, and Erock, all of my opponents, I think, are a little bit better placed in the rating. But yeah, I think there is no change in their positioning. So it seems that there is no clear 3-player specialist among them, and also no one who is very bad at 3-player games. So I think the level between the opponents should be relatively close, and I have a bit of a better rating, but I certainly need to give my best in order to get some good performances going. And with that, I think have finished the introduction and can take a look at the first game of the season, which will be a game against 3-1 Let's Jam and Scipio. I am playing in the 3rd position in this game, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we have some of the lab leaders with Sid Meier, Marie Curie, and Steve Jobs. There is also spaceflight and internet, so certainly some synergy for more science-based strategy. We also have Pierre and the internet, which is a strong combination. We have the Hollywood, but none of the theater leaders are there. Only Gandhi maybe to potentially hide behind and go for the Hollywood. But with that, maybe not the best mix to go for some theaters, especially as we can see in H2 there's Antoni Gaudi, but apart from him, no Bach, no Shakespeare. We have also the Red Cross in the game. In H2 we have the Suez Canal and James Cook, so some colonization payoff is there. We have the railroad, the Harvard College, so some strong economical wonders. We have both Nobel and Newton to maybe set up a strong science strategy. And then we have 2 military action leaders with Napoleon and Robespierre. We have 1 military action leader in H1 with Joan of Arc. Genghis Khan and Barbarossa can help with the strength. Barbarossa, Eleanor can maybe be nice leaders to go for a colonization game. We have Gutenberg, but no Leonardo. Saladin is there as a very solid leader. And we also have Michelangelo, maybe together with St. Peter's Basilica or Machu Picchu. We have the 2 strength wonders with Himeji Castle and Great Wall, and then also all of the wonders that give a happy face, help with the happy faces with St. Peter's Basilica, Forbidden City, and Great Wall, but none of the science wonders with Silk Road and Universitas. Alright, then we can take a look at the game, and 3-1 Let's Jam interestingly goes for the urban growth. Doesn't go for the Stonehenge here, but there are some interesting wonders coming down the road with Rome roads and pyramids, so maybe he's hoping to rather get one of those. Scipio, interestingly, also doesn't go for the Stonehenge. He could have gone for Stonehenge plus the Ridgeland, instead decides to go for the Engineering Genius. Maybe also, at the end, hopes to go for one of the better wonders, maybe with the Engineering Genius. So the opponents maybe have seen my Leaders and Wonders overview and have seen that the Stonehenge had quite a bad win rate, and now they skipped that wonder rather. And then it's my turn, and I think it's not a completely clear pick for me here. As you can see, I start by taking the Ridgeland here, but already that it's not completely clear, because potentially I could, for example, just say I will just go for the pyramids, secure myself maybe the best wonder, and maybe I would then be able to, or be willing to skip one of the yellow cards, but it was relatively quickly clear for me that going for the Ridgeland plus either Rome roads or the Stonehenge is just a bit better in my opinion than just going for the pyramids. I think that Ridgeland, the additional resource, is already just quite helpful, and I don't think the pyramids are that much stronger that I would be willing to give up on that Ridgeland here. Then the question is, what wonder do I rather want to have, Rome roads or the Stonehenge? When I go for the Stonehenge, my last pick is maybe not the most exciting. Either I can take the Patriotism A, or I can go for Caesar. Caesar in last position Maybe not the greatest. There is some colonization payoff though, so maybe I could go for Caesar here. Also the leaders that could come out of the deck. Maybe not the most exciting. Confucius is there, but the thing is both of my opponents also haven't committed to a leader yet, so it's certainly possible that one of those could potentially grab Confucius, maybe even for 2 civil actions if he should be available, or maybe he isn't revealed. And no, but I thought maybe just Rome roads, maybe it's a little bit better than the Stonehenge, and with the last card not being that exciting, I could go for the Rome roads, but then I realized something. And I realized that maybe it is actually a good move to go for Caesar here. And the thing is, and I will now end up taking Stonehenge and Caesar, the thing is, if you secure both a leader and a wonder in your first drafting round, then you have already both of those cards in hand, but it normally doesn't result in a strong additional civil action, because then you can elect your leader, build a mine, increase your population, and with the last civil action you very often end up just taking an HA yellow card, because you can't really do anything else, and then it's not that much of an advantage to already have secured a leader and a wonder, apart from knowing exactly what you will get. But in this situation, it's maybe not the case. First of all, I am playing in 3rd position, so there's at least a chance that maybe a strong H1 card could already be available for 2 civil actions or something at my turn. But more importantly, I not only can take a leader and a wonder, but also that rich land, and I have a 1-step wonder, meaning at my next turn I can elect Caesar, build a mine with the rich land, increase my population, and instead of having to grab an HA yellow card, I can then, thanks to the 1 resource that I've saved my mine, build the first step of the Stonehenge, meaning that the civil action that I save now, thanks to already securing a leader, will very likely translate into an actually very useful civil action that I can use maybe on turn 3 or turn 4. And then, with not knowing at all what leader I will be getting, and with both of my opponents potentially taking some strong leaders away, I thought it's just a lot better to already secure myself that additional civil action and just go for Caesar, who's maybe not ideal, but with there being some colonization payoff later on, it's always at least possible that he will lead to some good benefits. So I went for Caesar here. Then 3-1 Let's Jam goes for the Rome roads. I was interested to see whether he wants to go for Moses, but as you can see, he just builds the 2nd lab, takes the stockpile, and rather hopes to maybe get one of the better leaders. Now Scipio has neither leader nor wonder, so it will be interesting to see if he's willing to take Confucius for 2, and we can see he is taking the pyramids, he is going for Confucius, is electing him, gets a very strong wonder and a very strong leader, but he does that at the cost of delaying his mine. Can now finish the pyramids even directly, but then again he would delay the mine and the lab, so that is a bit of a cost, but maybe it is correct to secure Confucius here for him, especially with then also taking him away from 3-1 Let's Jam. Now it is my turn. There isn't anything that I want to take for 2 or 3 civil actions. I very shortly thought about Saladin. Getting the early civil action is strong, and I was not too happy to see that maybe Let's Jam can go for Saladin now as his first leader and just get the additional civil action going very early, instead of going for maybe one of those not as ideal leaders for him. But I think I shouldn't go for Saladin here, and instead I just went for Caesar, built my mine, increased my population, and built a step of the Stonehenge to use my civil actions very effectively. I do get some interesting draws here, the medieval army tactic and the vast territory, which is of course quite a commitment to see it, but also has some potential to give me great benefits. Let's Jam Seeds opens the development of religion. I think all players have a free population to take advantage of that, and he will indeed go for Saladin, which I think is probably a good choice. I mean, he could go for Sun Tzu and try something with him, but just getting the economical value out of the additional civil action is good. However, with then needing 3 civil actions to take and elect him, he didn't have enough civil actions left to get his mine going, so he is staying on 2 resource production for now, and instead builds the first step of his wonder. Scipio Seeds with Confucius, the development of politics is revealed, which I was very interested to see, as that might give me the chance to seed even more events. And indeed, I have now drawn the new deposits, the pestilence, and also potentially the open borders agreement, which I can offer at some point. Scipio will finish the pyramids this turn, so delays his mine and lab, but gets the additional civil action going, at least has some additional signs from Confucius. Interestingly, both of my opponents have skipped their third mine so far, which is something that you maybe don't see too often. And then Scipio takes the reserves to maybe get some resources back already for missing out on a mine. Now it is my turn. I first start by seeding the new deposits, maybe the more conservative event. Could potentially benefit 3-1 Let's Jam with having the Rome roads, but there's no iron inside, and the event deck probably is moving very quickly with me having Caesar and Scipio having Confucius, and with that maybe it will just give us all a relatively equal amount of resources. The development of Civil Life is revealed, and after that being revealed, I decided to make the commitment and actually seeded a vast territory into the deck, because as you can see, there is a cartography on the row. I thought about if I should just go for a more normal turn, maybe grab the monarchy to, with the signs of the Stonehenge, quickly get an additional civil action going, just do nothing too special. But I think the event deck will be moving very quickly. Thanks to the additional signs that I can get from the Stonehenge, I'm guaranteed to be able to develop the cartography already this turn. Confucius will see it for certain, maybe even Let's Jam will see it. I can hopefully see it at least one time at my next turn, so that vast territory might be revealed very, very quickly. Probably at a time where we all just have one warrior, and then with me having the cartography bonus, I should be in a good position to win that colony for a very cheap price, have my first colony for a potential Suez Canal, and with that I thought it is just worthwhile here to go for that investment into cartography. I see it, the development of settlement is revealed. I will use the development of Civil Life to increase my population. I could have built a second lab. The thing is, with the event deck moving that quickly, I want to develop the cartography already this turn, and even with building the lab with a 1 resource discount, I would be missing 1 resource to build a step of the Stonehenge, which I need to in order to get the science to develop the cartography already this turn. So instead I used the development of Civil Life to increase my population, took the cartography, and then just build a step of the Stonehenge and develop it. So doing all of that costs me a little bit. I delay my second lab, but I thought if I should win this vast territory, ideally for just a warrior, that would just be insanely strong. Afterwards, if I would win this colony, the pestilence out of the sudden would also be a very strong event for me to see it. I keep the pact, the tactic, and the pestilence. I draw the scientific breakthrough, so I can again double seed at my next turn if I want to. Let's Jam tries to offer a naval trade agreement to Scipio, but Scipio doesn't want to get the additional blue tokens and rejects. With me having seeded that strong colony, I was happy to see that rejected, so that none of my opponents has an additional colonization force. Let's Jam this turn plays the stockpile, finishes the Rome roads, and takes the rich land, which he can use to very cheaply build his third mine. Maybe at the next turn is willing to skip the monarchy. Scipio seeds, meaning the event deck is flipped already, the development of science is revealed. That allows him to go for the Code of Laws already this turn, is going up to 6 civil actions now, has used the development of Civil Life to build the third mine, takes the knights to have a military technology in hand, and then also takes the warfare. Then it is my turn, and I decided to indeed double seed here, because I think it would just, I want to get that colony out as quickly as possible, and it would also be great to get it out at my turn so that I win the tiebreakers, because what I was a little bit worried about is that I sadly haven't drawn any colonization cards so far. But if I open it now at my turn, my opponents would need to bid 4 in order to win it. Both of them just have a warrior, both of them have actually only 2 military actions, so they can't even keep more than 2 defense cards in hand. So in order to bid for, they would need to have already some in hands, and then in the last draw that they got, they would need to draw a third one. So I thought I should have very good chances to win that, but I was a bit worried with having no colonization card at all. But I mean, I was also willing to see the colony in when I had no colonization card, but I was hoping to see that revealed now, starting with the scientific breakthrough. The new deposits are revealed, giving everyone 3 additional resources, and then I see the pestilence, and as you can see, there is the vast territory revealed. That could be a very crucial moment now. If I win it for just a warrior, I think that could really give me some very strong benefits for the rest of the game. But I was worried when I just bid 3 that maybe there's at least a chance that one of my opponents could overtake me, but I thought it should be rather unlikely. But sadly, as you can see, I do get a bit unlucky here. Scipio has actually 3 defense cards, must have drawn at least one of them just in his last draw, and with that he is actually the one who is able to win the vast territory for just 1 warrior. And I was of course a bit annoyed about that outcome, because I have done some investments into cartography. Going for some colonies is of course never completely safe, but I think I had some good chances to win it here. And if at least Scipio maybe had 2 warriors and a fighting band built, and then maybe send away the fighting band, he would need to at least pay a price. But now he gets that colony very, very cheaply. And I thought that could now be quite a bit of a setback. I have focused on getting that cartography, but sadly another player is now getting the reward and get that colony very cheaply. So I was a bit unhappy about it. Yeah, but I can't change that now and have to see how I continue the game. If I would have won the colony, I think I very much would have considered Barbarossa here. And I still thought about if I maybe should go for him, because if I don't take him, Scipio, sadly, with having won the colony, can now go for a very strong Barbarossa. But I just felt like now the Barbarossa is not doing enough for me, and I have maybe something better that I can do. And with not having won the colony, I decided to use the turn and build up some economy. I will take the alchemy, develop it, and now at least there's a benefit in me having delayed the second lab for now, because I can now build an alchemy lab directly. That also gets me out of corruption. It makes it that I go up to 3 science production. Then I have 1 civil action left, and for me it was here a consideration between either taking the monarchy or the masonry. With the science from the Stonehenge, I would be able to get the monarchy going relatively quickly. But at the end, I rather went with the masonry here. It's not ideal, because I have already built 2 steps of the Stonehenge, and I already just built the alchemy, but I still will be able to save 1 civil action on the Stonehenge and 1 resource on the second alchemy upgrade. And with having that open borders agreement in hand, I should have a way to get my 3rd military action going. With that, I maybe don't need the monarchy as urgently. And then I thought maybe it could be better to aim towards an age 2 government form. And there is at least some interesting stuff for the masonry. There's a forbidden city, there's a great wall, there's a railroad, and there's a Suez Canal. I still have the cartography, so I could still try to, if I find more colonies, seed them into the deck and still hope have the potential to get a strong colonization game going. And so at the end I rather went for the masonry here than the monarchy. I do draw 1 event here that I can see it, also an infantry tactic which could potentially be useful. Let's Jam, interestingly, goes for the Code of Laws. For 3 civil actions, it's the second copy, so if he doesn't go for it, it will be discarded. He has already Saladin, not the most science production, so it's interesting, but it still, of course, will give him quite some benefits, and he takes it away from me. With having the Stonehenge, I, of course, would have been interested in getting that copy. Then he increases his population, uses the rich land to build a 3rd mine, and in order to get out of corruption, he will build a 2nd warrior, which also makes him stronger. And as you can see, he is interestingly taking the strength of Saladin. Maybe, of course, it could just be to get strongest. Maybe he's suspecting some strength events, and with me having Caesar, that's certainly a possibility. But that's not the only thing which might make him take the strength here, because Scipio has just sent 3 colonization cards away and has only 1 card in hand. He is low in science, meaning he can't really develop knights or warfare. He can build 2 warriors to go up to 2 strength, but the thing is, then he doesn't draw any cards, so he is really potentially in danger of an aggression. He can solve that danger or make sure to be safe from an aggression with going for Joan of Arc. With having the religion and getting a 3rd military action, he will then be safe. But that at least would mean that he maybe goes for the inferior leader here, because with him having the vast territory, I do think Barbarossa is just insanely strong for him, and he would then take maybe an inferior leader for an additional civil action. So it could be that Let's Jam has actually an aggression in hand. Maybe it could also be that he just wants to try to win some strength events. Scipio, nonetheless, goes for Barbarossa, builds the 2nd lab, uses Barbarossa to build 1 warrior, another warrior, so gets 2 activations in immediately, and then he takes the swordsman to have another military tech in hand. builds a fourth mine, which I think is a good move. He just got additional food and 3 additional yellows, so he certainly has the population to support that fourth mine and get some economical value out of the vast territory immediately. Doesn't go into the next area of consumption, so saves up even more food, and takes the Michi Castle, which at some point will help protecting him. But with not going for John, he at least could now be in danger of a potential aggression from Let's Jam. Now it is my turn, and I'm not sure if it's fair to call it a wrong decision or something, but I, in hindsight, make the wrong decision here, and it could have actually given me quite a boost if I did it the other way around. I have the knowledge of the ancients in hand here, and I was first of all not even certain if I should put it into the deck, because I have the alchemies ongoing, I have additional signs from the Stonehenge, while Scipio has already an additional wonder, has no additional science production from anywhere. For the moment also Let's Jam doesn't have any additional science production from anywhere, so I thought that the event could just benefit my opponents a bit more. And so I thought, let's maybe just start my politics phase with offering an open borders agreement, which I will offer to Let's Jam, because Scipio I don't want to give an additional military action with Barbarossa, and if I offer it to him first, he would be in danger of getting hit by an aggression immediately afterwards, so he probably wouldn't accept it. So I thought, let's just offer it to Let's Jam and see if he accepts it or not, and then afterwards I can still see it. The thing is, there's one single event in the event deck that would be very beneficial if I open it in the first politics phase, and that one event will actually be on top. So let's see how that will which one it will be. I first of all offer the open borders agreement. Let's Jam accepts the pact, so we have some additional military actions now. And then I play the knowledge of the ancients. It's actually a strategic territory, which I was happy to see. This time I'm also able to win that territory for 3. And yeah, with winning it, I get some additional draws, meaning I could have actually seeded a second event, but even better, if I would have just seeded as my first politics action, I would now be at 4 strength, and I could have actually played the Enslave, and very likely, unless that is actually a 4th colonization card, I would have gotten an aggression off against Scipio, giving me some much needed additional food and resources while costing him to destroy something, which I think could have been a very big setback for him. But sadly, I decided to offer this pact first. I thought if Let's Jam rejects, maybe in the second politics phase I can offer it to Scipio, but I don't want to offer it to him anyway, and offering it the second time to Let's Jam, maybe he would accept it then, but yeah. I mean, it's just a strategic territory, I think, for the other events. I mean, I could get hit by a call to arms and maybe draw one event, so probably I just should have seeded first if my plan is to seed anyway. And if I would have done it, I then would have maybe likely been able to actually pull an aggression off against Scipio, which would then be quite a bit lucky, but I sadly didn't go for seeding first here. Nonetheless, I was still happy that I won a territory, so that maybe I can still potentially pull off a strong Suez Canal here. Now it's my turn. I will develop the masonry, which allows me to save a resource on the alchemy upgrade, which is important because that allows me again to actually build a warrior, making me the strongest and also giving me a warrior in case there is actually another colony coming. So the masonry and the resource that I can save here already being quite important. So I built that warrior, and then I really wanted to take a copy of Frugality here because in the turn before, I did actually seed the Pestilence into the deck. Now that I didn't win the territory, that is actually not the greatest event for me, and I thought having some additional food, some additional population could just be extremely valuable, especially now that I have sent the population away to the strategic territory, and I'm maybe still hoping to get some other colonies, which might at least partly not help me with the population and might cost me population. So I thought getting additional food here is just extremely valuable. I could even just maybe take the second copy of Frugality, but instead I decided to take Chin of Arc here. Chin of Arc should be a fine leader. I have the religion, she gives me a bit of additional strength, will give me a bit of event knowledge. I think she will just be very solid. I also thought a little bit about Michelangelo, because when I finish the Stonehenge, will have 2 additional happy faces. I will get a bit of a culture production out of him. And I also have the masonry. There's still the Great Wall, there are some H2 wonders that could be interesting, but of course, for now, I don't have any increased resource production, and with that, I just felt like it's at this point probably just too expensive, and I also don't know yet if I will get the second copy of Knights. Could actually be that if maybe Scipio goes for more Barbarossa activations, or Let's Jam goes for building a knight, maybe I could even be a little bit in danger, so I felt like Joan of Arc is just a lot safer also than Michelangelo, and if I don't go for any of those leaders, Gutenberg doesn't really work for me, so then there would be Eleanor, and she is a very nice leader to get late at the age, but I also don't know if I will have the chance to get her for 1 civil action while still having Caesar to get a civil action back when electing her, so I thought just picking Joan of Arc for 1 civil action should be a good choice here. I keep the Raiders. Maybe I decided to keep Caesar. I could have elected Joan of Arc already for 1 culture production, but I thought maybe I have a chance for another double seed, which then basically also gives me +1 culture and more information about the event deck. And I do actually draw a bunch of events, so I have now the option to again double seed at the next turn. Also now I was interested to see, Let's Jam took the strength of Saladin, if he will now go for an aggression against Scipio. And he indeed does, and it is actually a kidnap. So that's an aggression that you don't see too often successfully, but in this case he actually is stealing the knights from Scipio, and it is actually quite relevant here, because we will see that Let's Jam goes for the Forbidden City, develops the knights, builds 1, increases his population to get out of corruption, and takes the rich land. So, and does he have a tactic? Yes, he has a tactic, so he really wanted to have those knights. And if he wouldn't have kidnapped those, he would have needed to spend 2 civil actions on taking the knights. So basically this aggression saved him 2 civil actions and scored him 3 culture thanks to using the knights immediately. And only because the knights were available for him for cheaper, he could easily pick up the Forbidden City, which I think is a nice way for him to spend his resources. He will have 9 after his turn, because with being that low in science, he kinda needs to invest them into a wonder. Can't really go for technology at the next turn, so I think this kidnap is quite relevant, and if Scipio wants to have the knights back and doesn't go for swordsman, then he again needs to spend a civil action, making it basically a 3 civil action swing here. This time Let's Jam takes the civil action again, has now 6 civil action in total, soon to be even more with the Forbidden City that he's having. And Scipio indeed wants to go for the knights, maybe has a good tactic for them, or maybe wants to copy the phalanx tactic, goes for 1 knight, goes for a second knight, is now at 6 strength, makes sure to not be the weakest, and then takes the Engineering Genius, which I think will be very helpful for him for the Meiji Castle, takes the Breakthrough, and takes the Urban Growth, so is able to take a bunch of yellow cards here. Now that means that I'm actually the weakest, but I nonetheless was willing to double seed here. First of all, I thought it's maybe not that likely that there are some very bad strength events coming, because my opponents would have pushed them against Caesar. Should at least be somewhat brave. There's of course the danger that I might get hit by some, but the thing is I didn't really plan on getting stronger this turn anyway. And if I indeed double seed this turn, then I actually have full knowledge about the next event deck, basically making Caesar like a little version of Nostradamus. I know exactly what I then have to worry about. And as for the moment, I will probably be the weakest for some more turns. If I double seed now and don't put the Raiders in, I actually know that there's not a single strength event coming in the next event deck. And with that, I wanted to double seed. The question is, which events do I want to seed? And I decided to go for the historic territory here to maybe win another colony and potentially go for a big Suez Canal. It's not the ideal colony because I will already get an additional happy face from the Stonehenge, so I might not need a happy face short term, but nonetheless I was willing to push it. There's a Confucius event, so that's fine. And then I decided to push the cultural influence. I will actually increase my population 2 times with the frugality, and afterwards I have not a lot of food left, so I maybe could have seeded the reds. But I am also relatively low in population, so I felt like the reds could potentially also backfire quite a bit. So I at the end rather went for the cultural influence, and my cultural production will at least increase a little bit when I finish the Stonehenge and go for Joan of Arc. The last event is luckily also no strength event, and it's also very good to see that out of the way, because the event is actually the Dark Ages. I lose 1 science, more than the others, who sadly don't lose anything, but I now can just safely save some science up for an H2 government form without having to worry about the event, so I was happy to see that out. This turn I first of all need to go for Joan of Arc. I also need to finish the Stonehenge. So I think those 2 actions are mandatory. And with the Pestilence coming, I also at least have to increase my population once. I could now potentially with the last 2 civil actions take a copy of Iron, but it's very late in the age, and I just felt it's not worth it to take the Iron here for 2. And instead I wanted to be rather civil action efficient and just increase my population another time, took the cultural heritage, because the additional science maybe could still be helpful at some point. I could also think about taking one of those urban building technologies, but there's not the most synergy for it in the game, as we saw. No theater leader in H3, only Anthony Gaudi and maybe Darwin in H2, so I felt like the cultural heritage is maybe the best pick here. As said, I thought about the Iron, but there's even another copy coming, so I really didn't want to invest 2 civil actions into it here. Then, as last action of my turn, I will use the free military action that I'm having and reveal the Legion tactic. I missed out on the 2nd copy of Knights that was taken away by Scipio after his copy was taken away by Let's Jam with the Kidnap, so some funny interaction here. But yeah, I have to work with just infantry units for now, and so I revealed the Legion tactic. I draw a fighting band and another colonization card. Let's Jam finishes the Forbidden City, is going up to 7 civil actions now, takes the breakthrough. I think the additional science he can use very well, and he is willing to pick up the Iron. Could have also gone for the Alchemy, but yeah, I guess having a copy of Iron is not bad. And he can even go for 2 upgrades immediately at the next turn thanks to the rich land. H2 starts. Scipio copies the Phalanx tactic, is now at 9 strength. Plays the reserves for resources, which allows him to finish the Magic Castle with the Engineering Genius, is now at 11 strength even, so quite a bit threatening. I was now very happy that I went for Joan of Arc and did not some crazy stuff with Michelangelo, and then Scipio with the last 3 civil actions will just grab that breakthrough to have some more science to work with. Now it is my turn. I of course see what is on top with Joan of Arc, and the event is actually the scientific breakthrough. And I decided to reveal that now. Yeah, I guess I can just relatively safely push here. I push the reds in. For now, I won't go for any of those irrigations. And yeah, maybe I can hopefully play around that. The scientific breakthrough is revealed. I take this copy of Richland. And again, I have the chance to take an Iron here for 2. I have the chance to take a copy of Swordsman here, I have the chance to go for a copy of Irrigation, maybe a copy of Theology together with Joan of Arc. I have some different options here, but I just didn't really like it that much to just go for some of those H1 things. And if I, for example, take a copy of Swordsman, which I think is certainly sensible with me having no military technology at all, then I guess I could play the Cultural Heritage, but what do I do with the last action? Maybe take the Irrigation, or I don't play the Cultural Heritage and take the Iron, but then I have a full hand, which I certainly don't want to have. I want to be able to take a government form for 3 civil actions and develop it at my next turn. So it just felt bad grabbing too many of those H1 technologies. Again, I also thought grabbing the Iron here for 2 civil actions just doesn't seem worth it. And at the end, and I also wasn't really happy about that solution, but at the end I thought maybe it's even just best to take the Deficient upgrade, which will be a very helpful card for me to either go for coal or selective breeding. And then I can now hope to soon either get a government form, or maybe coal mines, or selective breeding, though selective breeding with having seeded the reds and maybe not ideal. But yeah, I was hoping to get something. I could also of course get the Suez Canal maybe as a nice solution, so yeah. It's not ideal, but I need resources, and it at the end just felt better to me than just grabbing a bunch of those H1 techs, but maybe grabbing Swordsman, playing Cultural Heritage, grabbing Irrigation could also be a fine move. I revealed a fighting band tactic because the thing is that a pestilence is coming. Afterwards I have only one population and not enough to fulfill a legion tactic, so I thought the fighting band tactic is more likely to actually be useful for me. I draw some cards here. I was happy to see the fortifications tactic. I haven't committed to any military tech for now. Now also not taking the swordsman could work out very well if I just get a copy of cannons. There is actually the first copy coming down the row. The pestilence is revealed. Let's jam, same as I has a free population, however Scipio doesn't have one, so he needs to destroy something at his turn. And Let's jam then goes for Nobel. I was somewhat happy to see him going for him, because I do think he is very strong for him. The science boost so early in H2 is just so useful, but I think for Scipio maybe it would have been even better. He would be even more threatening, and he can't get a lot more out of Barbarossa, so it would be perfect for him to switch now just into a very strong H2 leader, so I was somewhat happy to see that Let's Jam takes him away and at least has to pay a bit of a price for him, but yeah, I think he is also quite strong for him. He goes then for the iron for one upgrade, another upgrade is now 5 resource production, and then takes a copy of irrigation. Scipio can use Barbarossa one more time. He lost, of course, something to the Pestilence, lost a warrior, gets one more activation going, takes the iron. He is willing to go for the second copy, maybe doesn't want to wait for coal here, goes for an upgrade, takes the revolutionary idea, which I was happy to see, because with taking that and the scientific method, which I think are useful cards for him, so I think it makes sense for him, but I was still happy to see it because it means that first of all I get a copy of cannon for one civil action with just having drawn the fortifications tactic, and on top of that I will actually get a conmon that I can go into, so I was quite happy about those cards being available for me at my next turn. But I will actually go for maybe a bit of a controversial decision. First of all, I will not see it. I see the knowledge of the ancients on top, but I just for now wasn't certain if I need any of those events. I might get rid of that last warrior when I win the historic territory ideally, so I don't necessarily have a warrior lying around that I can use for the freedom of movement, and all of the other things are already well placed. The terrorism is not great, raiders is not great, so I just passed on my politics action here. And yeah, I do think it's clear that my first instinct was to just try something out with going for conmon, going for cannons, maybe even building a cannon to get out of corruption. But, and it I think is also generally the best thing to do, but I made a decision here, and that decision is that I will actually go for the Republic over the conmon for an additional civil action. So that is certainly a bit of a controversial decision maybe, but I think there are some good reasons for it. First of all, I do think short term the Republic will just be the better government form, because short term I have Joan of Arc and the Open Borders Agreement, and for the rest of H2, 4 military actions will just be enough. The Republic costs an additional civil action, but I will get the additional civil action back immediately this turn, and the rest of H2 I will be playing with an additional civil action, and with me being the player on bronze mines, this additional civil action could turn out to be very, very vital, as it might allow me to go for more yellow cards, and with that get more resources, which maybe again can help me to maybe go for at some point quicker coal or selective breeding upgrades, and so on and so on. So I think short term the Republic is just a better government form here. Long term it maybe gets a bit more questionable, because at some point I will lose Joan of Arc in the Open Borders Agreement. I don't know if I get the strategy. Scipio will soon go for the scientific method. Might even get Newton. I won't take Newton. I think it's just too expensive here to take him. So he will actually very likely go for Newton, will have a lot of science, has a lot of civil actions, low military actions. He might very well take the strategy away. Also now Let's Jam will actually get the conmon for cheaper, which is probably the preferable government form for him. At least he doesn't have enough science to go for it, unless the knowledge of the ancients is revealed, which is of course possible. It was not a reason why I didn't want to push, because in case Let's Jam doesn't see it, it means that his government gets delayed by another turn. So of course in H3 I might be wishing to have the conmon, but again I at least will have the additional action, and the conmon, if I should stay in 6 action, will also be somewhat limiting. that alone maybe would have not been enough for me to go for the Republic here, but there was one more reason which at the end pushed me towards taking the Republic, and that is the Suez Canal here. Because my turn will involve going for a government form, taking cannons, and taking the wave of nationalism. I think that is just, all of those cards are just too valuable for me. And if I take the Conmon here, I take another card in front of the Suez Canal. Now that I only take cannons and wave, the Conmon of course will be taken by Let's Jam, but it will be taken out of a discard spot. If I go for cannons, wave, and Conmon, it is basically guaranteed that the Suez Canal will be discarded. It's not guaranteed, but Let's Jam only needs to take this breakthrough for one civil action. That's just extremely likely to happen. Now that I go for Republic cannons and Wave of Nationalism, he needs to take that breakthrough plus either journalism or cavalryman, which he might end up going for, especially the journalisms, with him having the Forbidden City, meaning the next population is actually happy, could turn out to be a very useful technology for him. Maybe he will just go for it, maybe the Suez Canal will land on a discard spot on Scipio's turn, but yeah, it's at least a possibility that the Suez Canal will be around again at my next turn. And I have 2 colonization cards in hand. I was hoping that I might have a chance in winning the historic territory, and there's a lot of time left to at some point draw a strong H2 colony to get with the Suez Canal and to make it a very strong wonder for me. If the Suez Canal doesn't land on a discard spot, then of course there's still a chance that Scipio might take it away. The thing is, he had very few draws from H2. I think actually only that one single card, meaning there's a good possibility that he actually doesn't have a colony in hand, and with maybe at least for the moment staying on low military actions and only having one colony, I do think it would be quite a bit of a risk to take that Suez Canal without having a colony in hand. So I was hoping that with going for the Republic line, I open up the door towards potentially getting the Suez Canal at my next turn. And with that, and the other reasons that I already mentioned, I thought that here going for the Republic for an additional civil action is the better choice than going for the Conmon. So I go for the Republic, take the cannons, take the wave, and then I need to get out of corruption. I think I can't spend that population anywhere else than the military. I mean, maybe I could build a farm, but I don't like that too much. If I build one cannon now with it, then in 2 turns I will have enough food to increase my population again, build a second cannon, and get the tactic, which will give me at least a somewhat decent amount of strength. And so, to get out of corruption, I do think the best thing is to just develop the cannons and build one already. Thanks to the cultural heritage, if a coal should be in the row, I could still take it, play the cultural heritage, develop it, and then go for one upgrade. So, yeah, I thanks to that card, can maybe spend the science without it being too bad. And yeah, so that was my turn. I keep the tactic, one event, the defense cards. I actually draw an international trade agreement here. Let's Jam doesn't see it. I was happy to see that. It means that his government form gets delayed. He takes the government form. I was very interested to see, will he end up taking either journalism or cavalryman, and will the Suez Canal potentially be available for me or not. He takes the Conmon, increases his population, develops the irrigation, goes for mine upgrade, goes for food upgrade, and he doesn't take any of those cards, meaning if Scipio doesn't take it away, have now a shot at getting the Suez Canal at my turn. Scipio plays the revolutionary idea, makes space in his hand in order to go for Newton, can now go for the scientific method, gets a very big science boost, can use the urban growth that he has taken earlier, but sadly, with the last 3 civil actions, he is taking the Suez Canal. Now it will be interesting to see, or to know whether he had a colony in hand already, or if he, or if it was a gamble. But I do think it is too risky for a gamble here. Maybe he is willing to go for that risk. But I think if he is going for that risk, maybe he should even just develop the warfare to maximize the draws immediately. So to me it looked like he might actually have a colony in hand, which maybe is a bit unfortunate, but of course he knew about that Suez Canal, so maybe it's only a backup colony, and maybe he hopes to draw a better one. With no colony in hand at all, even despite the denial reasons, I think I would probably not go for it, but yeah, probably has already a colony in hand. I was of course a bit disappointed to not have a chance of getting the Suez Canal, especially because I maybe would have been able to get it with the Engineering Genius. I start my turn by offering an international trade agreement. The additional resource might potentially actually be quite relevant already at the next turn, and generally I need more resources. It costs me the open borders agreement that I had with Let's Jam, but I nonetheless just wanted to get that going as quickly as possible. I offered it to Let's Jam. It was a close call. I think both players would potentially it would be possible to offer to both of them, but I just felt like Scipio's position might just be a tiny bit better. With having a Newton, saving civil actions, soon he will get a government form, will get the Suez Canal. I just felt like that's a bit better. And I still, of course, wanted to try to win this game, so I rather offered it to Let's Jam at the end. I go for the selective breeding here, which is not ideal, but if I don't upgrade anything, I don't have an easy way to get out of corruption. Of course, I could go for the organized religion and upgrade it here, but I was still hoping to win the historic territory, and then I really don't need the happy face short term. Of course, it makes me stronger, but I know that there is no strength event coming, thanks to me having seeded all of those events. And with that, I at the end went for the selective breeding, despite knowing that the reds will be coming, but I thought if I delay the event deck by a little bit, maybe I can at least get already 1 or 2 population out and then hopefully time it so that I don't lose the most food, and maybe my opponents have then already accumulated some food potentially, so I was hoping that it will work out fine somehow. So I go for the selective breeding, use the rich land to go for an upgrade. I then certainly wanted to have that second rich land. That's also why the 1 resource from the International Trade Agreement could be relevant at the next turn, because if at the next turn a coal should be available, which is likely, there's still 2 copies left, then thanks to the 1 additional resource and thanks to this rich land, I could actually go for 2 upgrades immediately instead of only 1, which certainly could make quite a difference. For the last civil action, I first thought about taking the patriotism. And I do think it is a very useful card for me. I still need resources, and I also need military actions. But that is already the 2nd copy of Organized Religion, and here is the 1 copy of Team Sports. So if I don't take the Organized Religion now, there's a chance that I might miss out on a Happy Face solution. Now that might all be fine if I win the historic territory, but it is not guaranteed at all. Scipio potentially might invest a little bit into that colony with having the Suez Canal. I have only H1 colonization cards in hand, so I have at least some, but it certainly could still be won by one of my opponents. And at the end, I just felt it's a bit too much of a risk to not take a Happy Face solution. But I'm not certain. Maybe I should just take the yellow card, but I have that religion. I can cheaply upgrade it to Organized Religion later, and I felt like that could later on just be a very useful technology for me to have in hand. So I went for that, but I'm not certain. Maybe I should have just hoped to win the historic territory and then take the patriotism, which might end up being just very useful. Sadly, a coal was not in the row yet, which I would have preferred to upgrade over the selective breeding. I don't draw any events, but another tactic that I know that my opponents won't have it, but of course I will go for the fortifications with having no cavalry technology. Let's Jam Seeds. The knowledge of the ancients is revealed now. Sadly, my opponents end up getting a bit more out of it than I do. Let's Jam this turn can go for the Conmon, builds a knight, upgrades the farm, takes the Engineering Genius, the Team Sports, the Architecture, Patriotism, Frugality, so just grabs a lot of cards. Then Scipio will go for the Republic, will now have lots of civil actions. Sadly, there's also a copy of Strategy in the row, so he takes it, can pair it with the Republic, and also take it away from me. I soon will be in 2 military actions, so while the additional civil actions so far I think have been quite useful actually. And soon I might get the downsides of my Republic choice early on. Scipio upgrades a mine, leaves himself with exactly 11 resources so that he can finish the Suez Canal at the next turn, takes the Cavalryman and the Urban Growth. There is still no coal on the row, and I was a bit worried. I think it would just be great if a copy of coal is on the row for me now. And luckily one of the copies is revealed and I can take it. I still have to invest 3 civil actions into it, which is a bit expensive, but nonetheless I just felt like that I need to get those upgrades going. But I still had to do a choice here, because I will develop it. And what I could do here is upgrading it without any of those yellow cards to get out of corruption, and then with the last 2 civil actions grabbing the railroad. Or the Harvard College, but I do think I did only really consider the railroad, which I lately started to value more and more and like it now quite a bit more than the Harvard College. I mean, both are still strong wonders and it depends a lot on the situation, but we also saw in my Leaders and Wonders overview of the last year that I went for the railroad quite a bit more often than the Harvard College. And yeah, so I thought about, is it a good solution here to go for the railroad? I have the masonry, I can finish it very efficiently, but it is already late. I would this turn take the railroad, only go for 1 upgrade. I sacrifice already some resources with not going for 2 upgrades, which is something that I could do. Then at the next turn I would not have enough resource to finish the railroad. I would need to upgrade further, and then the earliest that I could finish it would be in 2 turns, which maybe is still just at a time where it might be fine, but it also prevents me from doing some other stuff. And with all of that, I just, at the end thought it's just a tiny bit too late here and it distracts me a bit too much. If I would have been able to go for 2 upgrades and the railroad, I certainly would have done it, but I was not willing to delay upgrades here to get it wonder going, and so instead I just used the rich land and the efficient upgrade to go up to 8 resource production, which is at least quite strong now, and with the last civil action I played a cultural heritage, which would have been another downside of taking the railroad, because there is the possibility with both of my opponents having now lots of civil actions that the age will end before my next turn, and if I go for the railroad line I don't have the civil action to play the cultural heritage, meaning that it might be lost, and I thought the additional science actually could end up being very relevant for me here. So yeah, that was my turn, and I maybe could have revealed the fortifications here already, because there's a chance that the age might end before my next turn, and maybe I would rather miss out on H2 draws. And at the moment it looks like it doesn't help my opponents too much to reveal it, so I think maybe I actually should have revealed the tactic here already. On the other hand, there's the historic territory coming. This is actually on top. I saw it with Joan of Arc. And if I get more draws, I have a higher chance of getting a colonization card. I have a higher chance of maybe getting a seedable event. So at the end I wanted to get more draws, and there's at least a chance that I still H2 at my next turn, but maybe I could have also just revealed a tactic here. Thanks to the additional draw, I will actually get an H2 colonization card, so that somehow paid off. Let's jam seeds. It's the historic territory. I think I was actually willing to send... No, I think I was not willing to send all colonization cards away, because I think I didn't want to be at risk of an aggression. But I at the end am, luckily for me, able to win that colony for just a warrior. Let's jam goes for the Harvard College. The architecture finishes it. I think I very shortly thought about taking that, partly because of denial reasons, but at the end I was fine with leaving that wonder available for him. He then takes the rifleman and the efficient upgrade, reveals the classic army tactic with his free military action, making him the strongest. Scipio this turn finishes the Suez Canal, and we can see that he indeed has only that backup colony, the developed territory 1, which I was happy to see, because with that the Suez Canal is not as great for him. It's still fine probably, he gets to resource production, but he didn't get lucky with finding an H2 colony here, which would have been quite a bit better for him, so it's not too bad, but probably also not really that great, and so I was happy to see that he didn't find a good colony here. He develops the strategy, develops the navigation, which is possible thanks to the 3 signs of the developed territory, is now at 16 strength, so quite strong, takes the selective breeding and the urban growth, and sadly with taking those 2 cards the age will already end, so I will lose Joan of Arc and don't get the civil action back when replacing her. I can't see with Joan of Arc what is on top, but I actually know it with thanks to me having seeded all of those events, and the event on top is the cultural influence actually, so I didn't want to push here. I also didn't want to push, of course, because I didn't want to push a strong colony into Scipio Suez Canal, but I mean, I will go for Cook, but I will just gain quite a bit more culture, or I would gain 2 culture with seeding, but I will get 3 additional culture with getting additional culture production with the cultural influence. So I go for James Cook here. There's also Darwin. For now, I don't need this happy face as much, but or the additional unhappy worker or unhappy face will soon be annoying. I might sooner need to invest into the organized religion, and also Cook gives me at least 1 more culture production, so I just went for him. Maybe he could help me winning another colony, even though Scipio, who went for the navigation in Suez Canal, didn't put any event in, and of course he didn't draw any H2 colony apart from potentially his last turn, because otherwise he would have used it for the Suez Canal to get it. And if Let's Jam would see the colony is questionable, but yeah, at the end I mainly just went for him for the 3 culture production, which at least immediately will get doubled with the cultural influence that is coming. So we go for Cook. And this turn I'm quite a bit behind in strength, so now it's time to finally go for that fortifications tactic. We can now see that sadly I have to sacrifice 2 H3 draws now, and I can't even use all resources of the Wave of Nationalism because I don't have enough military actions to build 2 cannons and reveal a tactic, and just building the cannons would leave me somewhat vulnerable, and I would need to discard this colony, which I kind of wanted to keep in hand, because once the event deck flips, I think it could be fine to push that one just for the 2 culture, and as it then will be revealed very late. But yeah, now I sadly didn't reveal the tactic early on, so I played a wave, built 1 cannon, and revealed a tactic. At least having the resource saved up gives me some more options for my last 2 civil actions, but as you can see I just go for farm upgrades. I would have enough resources to just build another cannon here and use the +1 from the wave, but sadly I don't have the military actions. But yeah, I go for the food upgrade, so that maybe the next turn I can again increase my population before the rats are coming that I put into earlier. And then I also take the frugality, which I probably won't use short term, certainly not before the rats are out, but at some point the 3 additional food that I can get here for only 1 civil action might still make a difference. I thought about the journalism here. I can maybe invest into 1, but I have some strong resource production. I thought maybe at that point it's better to just wait for something from H3, and there's also not the biggest synergy for the journalism, so maybe it could be fine, but I at this point rather wanted to wait for H3 solutions. Now that we are at the beginning of H3, it's maybe also a good time to take a look at the overview here. And we can see that I actually managed to develop a little bit of a culture lead with Joan of Arc and now James Cook. I am at 39, while my opponents are a little bit behind. There are by no means very strong or big differences, but still it's a bit of a lead that my opponents need to overcome, especially also of course with the historic territory that I won. I got a bit of a culture. And my position, I thought, is playable. I have 8 resource production, which is combined with together with Scipio. I have the strongest. Science production is a little bit behind, but I'm in a position where I can either go into multimedia or computers if those should be available. My food production is fine. There are the rats coming soon, but hopefully I will get 1 more population out, and then afterwards at least I have my food production already set up. I have fewer civil actions, but still a fine amount to work with. My big downside is of course that I have only 2 military actions, which already meant that I missed out on my first H3 draw completely, which is quite bad. With the fortifications, though, at least I have an easy way to get more strength going. So I felt my position is playable. Hopefully I will be able to keep my culture lead for a bit, and maybe that could give me an advantage at some point. But my opponents have lots of civil actions, strong science production, so I felt it could also happen that I fall a little bit behind. But I mean, I have the strong resource production. If I get computers or multimedia, I might be able to build up something strong. And so I felt like it's quite a close game at this point. Felt like Scipio maybe in a bit of a better position than Let's Jam because of his higher resource production, has 1 more civil action and has Newton. For the moment has the strength lead, has delayed his food income though. But overall I felt like at this point it's quite close and every player can take the win from here on. Let's Jam increases his population, develops the Rifleman, plays the Patriotism, goes for 2 upgrades, going up to 20 strength, making him the strongest. Develops the team sports, takes the reserves, and takes Pierre. He has those team sports, and then Pierre at some point will be quite strong. For now he can keep Nobel, but at some point Pierre I think will be quite strong for him, and he is willing to take him here for 3 civil actions. Scipio Seeds opens the cultural influence, which I get the most culture out of, but it's relatively close. He will go for the space flight, which is a wonder that might have some potential for him, now that he will have strong science production with Newton. And interestingly, he is willing to take both the Rifleman and the computers for 3 here. Especially the computers are an interesting take. Also understandable with Newton, soon they might give him a really big boost. And if he doesn't take him, I can get into computers, and I do think that would give me quite a strong boost, just maybe going for 2 computer upgrades, getting a lot of science production going. So maybe he thinks it's strong for him, and also a denial. The Rifleman he kinda needs if he wants to copy the classic army tactic at some point, and at the end he is actually willing to take both of those things at the cost of corruption and at the cost of delaying some upgrades. That is quite a big of a cost though, so maybe he could have skipped the computers here, but of course those might still be useful for him at some point. He copies the classic army tactic already, only misses out in 1 draw and gets a little bit stronger. Now it is my turn, I am the weakest, and I kinda wanted to get 1 more population before the reds are revealed, so that I have enough population to go for another fortifications tactic. Additionally, the other H1 event was seeded by Let's Jam, and he in the last 2 turns did some stuff to make sure to get stronger. First of all, he revealed the tactic relatively early to get +1 strength, and now again he made sure to get stronger than Scipio with going for the 2 upgrades. Maybe he would have done it anyway, but it felt to me like there might be a strength event coming, and with that I didn't want to push here. I, as you can see, secure myself the fast food chains. I can take a wonder very cheaply. That's at least a benefit of having not built that many wonders. And if I don't go for it, there is Hollywood and Internet and the Red Cross that is already in a row. And I do think all of the remaining wonders are just quite difficult for me to get a lot of points out of. And so I felt like the fast food chains, now having the opportunity to take them that cheap, I kinda have to use. I then increased my population without the frugality. I built 2 more cannons, making me the strongest, being prepared for a potential strength event from Let's Jam, and sadly again missing out on any H3 draw, so now it certainly hurts having that low military actions with the Republic. On the other hand, with the last civil actions I will take Rev Idea, Urban Growth and Reserves, and again, thanks to the additional civil action, I was able to secure myself an additional yellow card here, so we see both the advantages and disadvantages of having the Republic displayed here, but now I think the disadvantages are a bit more heavy. I was really hoping that the military theory will be available soon, but I think in H2 the additional action was actually quite helpful for me to have, so I think I would do the same decision again, especially if Scipio doesn't have that developed territory in hand. He might leave the Suez Canal to me and I might have a shot at getting that at the end. Instead of urban growth plus reserves, I could have taken a military buildup, but now that I already invested into 2 more cannons, I felt like it's not certain if I can get the full amount of value out of it, and I rather wanted to go for those 2 cards. Now it's Let's Jam's turn. He seeds. The reds are revealed, so the other event remains unknown. Let's Jam loses the most amount of food, the biggest amount of food. The first copy of Military Theory is in a row, but sadly it is taken away by Let's Jam, and him going for that, plus building a team sports again, makes sure that he is the strongest. So now I really thought there is probably an influential strength event on top. Scipio offers the international tourism to 3-1 Let's Jam, and I was not really happy to see it. It's early in H3, and both of them have 3 wonders at the moment, might at some point even have 4, so that will sadly add up over the next few turns and gives me a bit of a disadvantage. Scipio develops the Rifleman for 3 with Newton, with not having found the time to go for the scientific method upgrade at the turn before. He is missing 2 science now to go for the computers already this turn. He takes Steve Jobs in hand already, takes the engineering, the reserves, elects Steve Jobs, maybe to make space in his hand, but as we can see, makes also space in his hand with going for the urban growth, but then he takes again 2 cards, so he makes space in his hand, but he also uses one of his benefits, which are the happy faces, in order to put another work into Rifleman, getting 1 more strength than Let's Jam, also maybe having noticed the efforts that Let's Jam has done to get stronger and prepares himself in case there's a strength event on top, also takes a lot of cards from the row here. But at least the science production has dropped now that he has elected Steve Jobs instead of Newton. Now it is my turn. I could cede the vast territory for 2 culture, but I have a way to get stronger again, and at this point I really felt like there is probably a big strength event coming, and I was happy to see that there is the second copy of military theory now on the row for me, which I immediately wanted to take and develop. I really need to maximize my amount of draws from now on to hopefully still get some impacts that I can work with. So I take the military theory and I develop it. I have now 3 civil actions left. There are only 2 ways to get out of corruption for me that don't involve destroying something. That's either upgrading my last mine or maybe already building some steps of the fast food chains, which is a bit of a commitment. So I thought I'd rather maybe want to upgrade my last mine. And then I have 2 civil actions left. I've thought about just taking the reserves for my last civil action. For my last 2 civil actions, but I decided differently, and I will actually, after going for that upgrade, go for Marie Curie and elect her already. I don't think that's a clear choice. The thing is, if I don't go for a leader this turn, Sid Meier doesn't do that much unless I get computers. Gandhi I maybe don't really need. I should be fine and maybe could even potentially go in the offensive at some point if one of my opponents with the classic armies misses out in air forces. I potentially could end up being a bit threatening. And Mandela could be interesting, but he needs to be there at the right time in order for him to be strong. Maybe I should play around him, just hope that I find the right time to get him. At the next turn, I will have, when I increase my population, an unhappy worker. Maybe I should just hope to get Mandela here. But Marie Curie, while I actually decrease my culture production by 1, I increase my science production. And instead of taking the reserves, I have now another civil action left, which I can use to take the mechanized agriculture, which potentially could help me setting up for some impacts, but also is just a very cheap technology. There is Nobel. Pierre probably will get elected soon, and then there will be Nobel Prizes, so the additional science from Marie Curie could very well translate potentially into an additional Nobel Prize. And with that, I was at the end willing to elect her. There would have been also Churchill. I could have just replaced Cook with Churchill, would have kept the same amount of culture reduction with the potential of getting help for the military if needed. But at the end, I rather went with Marie Curie. There's also the potential to further upgrade to computers, which is generally helpful for impacts, and then she also will give me even more culture reduction and also 3 strength. So, and with me having not the most population and the next population being unhappy, I thought that if the computers are available, that might, also with Nobel Prizes coming, actually be a very reasonable thing for me to do. So I went for Marie Curie here. Maybe I could have also just taken the reserves. Also, I'm not certain if I should have taken the right copy of Mechanized Agriculture here, because, of course, also for Let's Jam, it's a cheap technology and maybe it can help him for impacts. Maybe I should have taken the right copy. But then the reserves drop down to 1 civil action for him. And at the end, I decided to let those stay on 2 civil actions. But maybe I could have also making sure that this is taken away completely from him. I get some draws, an impact that potentially might be playable. My tactic doesn't synergize nicely with that, but could still be playable, especially if I should end up getting the civil service. Also another colonization card. Let's Jam doesn't see it, goes for Pierre, so gets a bit of culture reduction, increases his population twice, goes for 2 more arenas. With electing Pierre, going for all of those arenas and having the international tourism, he out of the sudden is at 13 culture production, will get the Olympic Games soon. I was worried that he will now start to catch up very quickly. He then takes the mechanized agriculture and the efficient upgrade, so yeah, uses the opportunity of being able to get this card. Otherwise, he might have just taken efficient upgrade and reserves Thor, which also maybe would have been quite strong for him. Let's Jam also again made sure to get stronger again. Scipio decides to nonetheless seed. Maybe he wants to start getting some impacts in there. And it was indeed a strength event that we danced around all the time now. There's the Uncertain Borders, which I'm now able to win actually. So Scipio loses a yellow token, he develops the computers with Steve Jobs, goes for 2 upgrades, is now at least a 10 science production, takes the endowment, the reserves, plays 1 reserves for food to get maybe at some point 1 more population out already this turn, takes the professional sports to have a cheap technology, and then builds a knight to make sure that he isn't the weakest. I'm now the strongest, so I want to seed. However, the impact of variety is not completely clear how nice that will be for me, so I rather wanted to push the vast territory in there. And with my colonization cards, maybe at least I also have a chance to win it, potentially. The Independence Declaration is revealed, but Let's Jam doesn't have any colonies. And there is actually a copy of computers available for me this turn. However, with being the winner of the Uncertain Borders, I have also other options now, because the next population is actually happy now, so that is quite a useful event, or was quite a useful event for me. So for example, I could have gone into multimedia this turn already, increasing my culture production immediately, also helping me for the impact of variety. And my plan will still be to get into multimedia, but I will delay it by 1 turn in order to get 2 upgrades to computers going this turn, because I just felt the increase of science production will really help me getting some Nobel Prizes going. We can take a look on how it looks exactly. I will go for 2 upgrades, increase my population, finally I will be able to use the frugality, I'm still out of corruption, and then I, with the last 2 civil actions, will take the civil service and the multimedia. At the next turn, I have just enough science, even without the revolutionary idea, to go for multimedia and organized religion. So I will be able to go for Nobel Prize, I will be able to build a multimedia, increasing my science and culture production even more at the next turn. And then thanks to the revolutionary idea, I will again, at the turn after, be able to go for another Nobel Prize. And with that, I just felt like that science increase is just quite strong, and it does at least also lead to a +1 culture production increase, because now coal mines are not my best or highest level technology anymore out of mines and labs. So +1 culture, +2 strength, and hopefully some culture for the Nobel Prizes, plus potentially quite some help for impacts. So yeah, at the end I felt that might be best to do, but I still wanted to secure myself the multimedia to be able to increase my culture production at the next turn even more. For the moment, I still have a culture lead. When I get my production, I'm at 60, so I was still thinking the game might still be looking fine for me. I have that big resource production, I have a wonder, but of course, Let's Jam as this big culture production will get the Olympic Games, Scipio will get maybe a bigger wonder and get Steve Jobs culture on top, and for now I haven't drawn a strong impact, so I thought that still might be quite close. I do get some draws here, and I was somewhat happy about them. Impact of colonies gives me quite some points against Let's Jam. Impact of architecture, if I go now for multimedia and organized religion, could also end up being quite a strong impact for me, but it also depends on what my opponents will do. Let's Jam uses the Olympic Games, and he just takes 2 cards from the row this turn, the Air Forces and the Internet. And yeah, the Air Forces, he kinda needs to be safe. I also could have taken them at my turn, I think, but I thought with the fortifications I don't really need them for 3 civil actions, but Let's Jam with having a classic army tactic, and with me maybe having enough resource to declare war and go for 2 Air Forces, probably needs the Air Forces in order to not be too much in danger. And then there's the Internet, which is a fine wonder for him with Pierre. It's the last wonder in the game. The problem for him is if he doesn't take it, with me having left over, with me having saved up some resources, with not having gone for the multimedia, I could actually finish the fast food chains with the masonry and then take the Internet, depending how many cards Scipio will take. And Let's Jam, of course, would need to do something else with all of those civil actions, so he probably would end up taking some cards. Scipio, as lots of civil actions, will take some cards. It could then be likely that I can take finish the fast food chains and deny it wonder. It's the question if I would really need to do that, and how much it would also cost me in impact preparation and stuff. And points maybe against Scipio, so maybe he could also just hope to get that wonder the next turn, but I didn't check it, but maybe there's also the danger that Scipio could make it that that wonder will be discarded, so at the end Let's Jam just decides to make sure that he has the last wonder in the game available for himself. Scipio seeds, there's a prosperity revealed, which gives him one more population, which is sadly quite useful for him. He develops the selective breeding, develops the engineering, increases his population, upgrades the farm, takes the revolutionary idea, the tanks, and plays the endowment this turn for 6 culture. I have now the option to end the age if I take 2 cards from the non-discard spot. Scipio left himself with enough resource to finish the spaceflight at the next turn, and it's just enough science with the revolutionary idea that he just took to develop 2 more technologies for 1 last Nobel Prize and 2 more Steve Jobs activation, and also more points for the spaceflight, so he prepared himself nicely in case the game should end. And if the game should continue, he probably also would be able to do some stuff here. So that will now be an interesting question for my turn. Do I want to end the game or not? I started by seeding the impact of colonies because I felt that is still the safer impact to play here. So I seed. An immigration is revealed, which no one gets hit by. I will actually end my turn with an unhappy worker, which was not a clear choice. It was a turn where a lot of variations are possible, and so with now one happy face related event being out, I was a bit more inclined to go for one of those variations where I will end my turn with an unhappy worker. And yeah, it's the question here, should I end the game or not? The thing is, I found a way to set myself up so that I can, if I prolong the game, go for Nobel Prize this turn, in the next turn, and in my last turn. So 3 more Nobel Prizes, and I can, starting with this turn, go for the multimedia, and at the next turn build another one. So I felt like I will get the Nobel Prizes, I will get more culture production, and I have one more chance of maybe drawing some more impacts, and have maybe a chance to get those potentially into the deck. I have more resource production. But on the other hand, Let's Jam can make the internet bigger if I prolong the game, Scipio can make the spaceflight bigger. I was hoping that at least he doesn't get a second additional or another additional Nobel Prize and can only go for 1. I was hoping that that might actually be the case, but he might prepare for impacts, gets of course at least 1 more Steve Jobs activation, gets more point from the spaceflight. So it wasn't completely clear, but I thought I kinda want to prolong the game here with having that clear plan. And I will start my turn by developing multimedia and the organized religion, scoring a Nobel Prize and building a multimedia. And then I had a lot of variations here. I kind of wanted to take the satellites because I have 2 techs already in hand. I have the revolutionary idea. I can go for Nobel Prize at the next turn, and if I don't take any tech this turn, then it's possible that I don't find 2 viable techs to go for Nobel Prize at the last turn, but if I take the satellites, I only need 1 more tech, and actually all of the 4 cards that are still in the deck are technologies. We have the oil, modern infantry, democracy, and the professional sports, so it's very likely that I get my 2 Nobel Prizes if I just take the satellites, so that's one action. I thought about variations where I increase my population and build an organized religion, just get 1 more culture production going, and then play the reserves. Or I just take the reserves in hand here. At the end, I decided to not build an organized religion and instead I increased my population twice, and I don't play that copy of reserves. I build a warrior and I take that copy of reserves. I built a warrior because one of the 2 events here is the vast territory, and I just seeded the impact of colonies in there, so I thought it could actually be quite valuable to have a chance to win that. I have at least 2 colonization cards. It's possible that I might win that colony. And even if I don't win it, that warrior helps me for impact of harmony, impact of variety that I have actually in hand. So even then it gives me +1 points for the fast food chains, even then it might be not too bad. So I build that warrior here. I could have played the reserves here for 3 resources instead of taking that one, so that I'm 1 civil action ahead, but I was hoping that I have enough civil actions to do all of the things in the last 2 turns, and I also thought it could potentially be important to have the 1 more resource, because that will now mean that I have 20 resources at the next turn, meaning I can build 2 more fortifications tactics, because Scipio, with having the patriotism, could maybe go for air forces, maybe just declare war, build 2 air forces, sacrifice an air force with Dimitri Castle, and if I can only go for 1 more fortifications tactic, I'm actually a bit in danger here, so I felt like I need to leave myself with 20 resources here. And so, yeah, and if I build an organized religion or even just a religion, I again don't have 20 resources. I thought about not building the warrior at all, but I thought it could be kind of nice to win that vast territory too, if possible. And so at the end, at this turn, I was a bit worried that the one event seeded by Let's Jam could be the civil unrest, which I didn't have knowledge about, but at the end, that was the one risk that I was willing to take here. And also, as said, I decided to prolong the game here, which I think is not completely clear, but with me being able to build another multimedia already the next turn and hopefully getting Nobel Prize every turn, I at the end was willing to prolong the game. I was now hoping for some good impact draws. Sadly, I don't get a really good impact draw. Impact of Happiness probably won't be too great, and probably I won't push it. At least another colonization card, which might help me winning the vast territory too for the impact of colonies. Let's Jam increases his population. He interestingly plays it somewhat safe here. Makes sure to get a bit stronger, builds actually 2 more units, takes the patriotism, the professional sports, and the urban growth. I was a bit surprised by his willingness to play that safe. Maybe he is worried about strength events, or what could of course be the case, has even seeded one himself. But I thought maybe not doing those investments and instead, for example, building a multimedia with the urban growth, or if it is too greedy to build it this turn, maybe just take it, and then maybe there's a possibility to get it with the internet, but I didn't do the calculations, I didn't check how it plays out with corruption, but when I thought about prolonging the game, I thought, it could be bad, because then Let's Jam can build a multimedia and then maybe get the internet, but I didn't check out very carefully how nicely that works out for him, and again, that could be an indicator that maybe a strength event is coming. And Let's Jam, same as I, of course, has to be a bit careful about Scipio and potentially even about myself. I could, again, if the air forces should be available for me, go for a war and build 2 air forces. Now H4 starts. Scipio doesn't see it, he goes for tanks, plays the military buildup, goes for some upgrades, takes some technologies. I was a bit worried that he could take all of the technologies away, so that I can't go for 2 Nobel Prizes, but the question at my next turn will be if I even want to go for 2 Nobel Prizes, when there is also the possibility of going for the democracy. Scipio goes for professional sports, has got a Nobel Prize, builds an arena, which will help him for some impact, certainly helps him for the impact of architecture and the variety that I have in hand, so sadly he is prepared for that. At least he can't go for another Nobel Prize at the next turn, which I was happy about. Now it is my turn, and I start by seeding the impact of architecture. I was really afraid of a civil unrest being revealed, and also generally I was interested if there is indeed a strength event that Let's Jam has seeded. The other event is not revealed, instead a vast territory. As you can see, I actually didn't bid that much. I have 2 colonization cards, but the thing is, with Scipio having gotten that strong, yeah, if I send any of those away, and I really don't really want to rebuild any of my units, or even more expensive units, then I would just be in danger of an aggression, and I came to the conclusion that despite the impact of colonies, that it's not worth for me to be in danger of an aggression, so I only bid a warrior without any colonization cards, which sadly makes it that Scipio is able to win it, meaning he gets a bit more out of the impact of colonies than I do. At least he has to send 1 unit away. This turn I upgrade a temple to organized religion, I build one more multimedia, now I have just enough resources to finish the fast food chains at the next turn, so I actually needed that reserves, wasn't able to play the reserves too to save a civil action if I want to be able to do both of those things, which are nice for me to do because of the impact of architecture that I've just seeded. And now the question is, do I want to go for Nobel Prize this turn, probably with going for both civil service and satellites, with playing the revolutionary idea, then taking the oil, or do I want to go for democracy this turn, and I miss out on a Nobel Prize, but I will this and at the next turn get 3 additional culture reduction, and with that I was willing to go for the democracy. It is possible that I might get punished by impacts, impact of technology especially, but also impact of government, get better impact of progress. For now is weaker for one turn, but after my last turn will be stronger with the democracy on top. Might even help me for the impact of culture potentially, so I at the end went with the democracy here. Develop it, take the oil just to take something away from a Let's Jam, and then I played the reserves for resources as I need to do that anyway. And now I have just enough resources to finish my wonder at the next turn. Culture-wise, I'm one culture behind Scipio already. I was a bit worried. The impact of colonies that I've seeded is a bit better for him. Impact of architecture now a bit better for me. I don't have any impact that gives me strong points against him at the moment. And the space flight probably will be a bit better for him than the fast food chains for me. But I have more culture production. I will get a Nobel Prize. He doesn't get one. He only gets the Steve Jobs activation. So I will get more culture out of my last turn. He gets probably more out of his wonder, so it might be that it will be quite close between us, while Let's Jam starts to be a little bit behind here, surprisingly. For a moment it looked like he will catch up with his Olympic Games and his big PR culture production, but he has actually fallen behind again a little bit. Let's Jam seeds, and there is no strength event instead of the economic progress, which again made me wonder why he didn't go for the multimedia, which he still could have now built with the urban growth for 3 culture production and +6 for the internet. He of course has the professional sports now. Maybe he generally has some other plans to prepare for some other impacts. He goes for an upgrade to mechanized agriculture for free, goes for some upgrades here that of course gives him also +6 for the internet, helps him for some impacts. I will have the impact of architecture seeded, so it does actually give him the same as building a multimedia would have given him. I was still a bit surprised that he didn't go for the multimedia, but maybe he didn't find a nice way of implementing it into the turn, and maybe also needed to do some stuff to be safe from potential wars. He still gets a 21 culture internet, which is quite fine. Scipio seeds, and I was quite a bit unhappy because you can see that the impact of progress is revealed, which at least gives me already +16 points, but if I would have gone for developing satellites and civil service at my turn before, I would have gotten 8 more culture out of this than this impact than now with the democracy. So sadly, that is revealed a bit too early. I think I would still go for the democracy. It's not clear that this was the first impact revealed and that it's even among those 3 impacts if it is in there. I mean, maybe I could have seen that maybe Scipio could have seeded it already as one of his 2 impacts that are here, but even then it might just be behind, so yeah. But in hindsight, now developing civil service and satellites at a turn before and just not going for democracy at all would have been quite a bit better for me. Scipio goes for the modern infantry, gets 1 more Steve Jobs activation, builds the space flight for a very strong 30 points, plays the patriotism, builds the professional sports, goes for some upgrades. Maybe this could be a hint towards impact of competition, but maybe he also just wants to use all of the things that are available for him. He also upgrades the farm, which helps him for impact of agriculture and balance. Now it is my turn. I was going for the civil service, will make it at impact of variety, gives me +2 against Let's Jam and +0 against Scipio, and then I get the 3 culture for seeding, so I wanted to push that into the deck. The impact of colonies is revealed, which sadly gives now more culture to Scipio. And in this turn I will go for the civil service. First I thought I will just develop civil service satellites, increase my population, build an organized religion, finish the fast food chains, and then that would be my turn. getting 1 more culture reduction, getting +2 for the impact of architecture. But at the end, as I realized that maybe I need some good stuff to finish before Scipio, decided to go for something slightly different. Instead of building an organized religion, I will actually only build a normal religion, which allows me to then not go for the satellites. The impact of progress is out anyway, and it doesn't help me for variety because I have the cartography already. I will go for the mechanized agriculture, 1 upgrade, 2 upgrades. So I miss out on 2 save points that I could have gotten for the impact of architecture, but Let's Champ just went for an agriculture upgrade, Scipio just went for an agriculture upgrade. So impact of agriculture looks very possible or very likely, and impact of balance is at least also a possibility, and both of those impacts get quite a bit improved. Both are impacts that would allow me to catch up some points to Scipio, and with that I was willing to go for that line instead of just going for the +2 points from the impact of architecture. And after doing the 2 upgrades, I have just enough resources left to finish the fast food chains for 21 points. Now we can take a look at the culture before the final impacts, and we can see that I'm 9 culture behind Scipio, so he's certainly still in reach, but my impacts are not enough to catch up to him, so I need to hope that his own impacts maybe are somewhat neutral, and that maybe the impact by Let's Jam gives me some points against him. So I was not too hopeful, but it's possible, and I was quite confident or hopeful that I will finish before Let's Jam here, but 20 points is also an amount that can be overtaken. The first impact is my impact of variety, that gives almost the same to all players. It's a bit worse for Let's Jam. Then there is the impact of strength. That one is not really that great for me. With that, I basically lost all of my hopes to catch up to Scipio, and now it's rather about just staying in front of Let's Jam. There's the impact of agriculture actually, so my guess was right, and going for those upgrades gave me some additional points now. The next impact is the impact of architecture that I have seeded, gives me +2 against Scipio and +5 against Let's Jam. There's 1 impact left, but now the differences are quite big, so let's see if that can change anything. It's the impact of wonders. It's not great for me, so Let's Jam manages to catch up some points to me. Comes closer, so at the end I am closer to him than to Scipio, but it's not enough for him to overtake me, meaning that at the end Scipio is able to win this game, so congratulations to him. I finished at the 2nd place, and Let's Jam at the 3rd position. Yeah, that was an interesting game, one where I had a frustrating moment already at the beginning when sadly I was the one who didn't get the vast territory 1 for just a warrior. I was a bit annoyed about that, but of course needed to play on, and there were some other colonies at least. If I would have pushed the knowledge of the ancients before offering the open borders agreement, maybe I would have gotten that enslave off against Scipio. So yeah, at the early game I was a bit frustrated after that, but I still managed to build up some playable position. Sadly, the Suez Canal was taken away by Scipio, but I still at least won both of those colonies extremely cheaply for just a warrior. It allowed me actually to go for James Cook later on. I made the interesting choice to go for Republic instead of Conmon, which cost me some draws in the beginning of Age 3, but also I think overall maybe was the right call. And then I had a bit of a culture lead, also kind of managed to keep it, but at the end Scipio, with the Steve Jobs activations, a lot of Nobel Prizes, and with the strongest wonder at the end, and also of course some good impacts, manages to win the game and finishes before me. Also with quite a bit of a lead, so the international tourism didn't make the difference here at the end, even though again we saw it in the last transcontinental ladder game where it was quite influential. Here it again scored some additional points, but at least it very likely didn't make a difference on the placement here. And so an interesting game. At least a 2nd place after my investments into cartography without an immediate reward. I was a bit worried that I'm already a bit behind, so I think a second place is somewhat fine. I had some hopes for first place going into H3 with having the culture lead and at least then the best resource production. But yeah, Scipio nicely managed to catch up and went for a strong Steve Jobs finish. Alright, with that we have finished taking a look at the first game of the season. There are no other games finished so far, so we don't need to take a look at the standings. And yeah, I hope you're excited to see some games of the seasons. Ideally, I will manage to cover all of them. Soon there will also be the World Championship starting, where I will start in stage 3 this year. So I plan on covering that as well. And yeah, with that, I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.